Hi everyone, welcome to seminar number 4, Rewriting the Rules. Here's my agenda for today. We're going to get right into it, starting with administrative items. Cognitive strategies in full swing. You should be able to follow along on your activity schedule. You should be able to calculate your grades and know where you're standing right now. One thing that's coming out, there's only a few people, and we've been in touch with them already, that may be failing the course, but again, we have ways of helping students to get through. If you are unable to complete the course this term, there's still 25% of your marks available next semester, so you should be there's a lot up for grabs next term to finish it. But if you're still if that's not going to be of help, then we will be creating a new version of it, and you'll be given access, and you'll have to repeat the whole course in the winter term. And we'll be in touch around December 1st for students that need to do that. There's going to be our evaluation. Again, this is you evaluating us. We need our report card. This is going to be sent out via email, so just be on the lookout for it. We'll send you some notifications. Again, you do get a mark for doing this. It's completely anonymous. Your email is used. Your link is specifically for you. So we can't send you the link. That comes from a third party, and it is all anonymous. We just know if you did it or not, so that we could give you your mark for completing it. So you just get the completion mark. I wanted to talk a little bit about GPA anxiety. People are getting a lot of marks back, so I just wanted to have a look at in cognitive strategies. If we go to cognitive strategies and you scroll down in course overview, and here there's a spreadsheet and a video on how to use the spreadsheet. And it just goes through and it just tells you how to download it, how to find it. That's where the spreadsheet is. But it will open up the spreadsheet here, and it's just a little calculator I made to help with calculating your grade. So it's a couple of instructions. The first one is just look at your course syllabus and say, what are you being assessed on? So if you're doing history, this has got a lab, so let's just say physics. And you've got two midterms, both of them worth 25%. You got a lab, not sure why it's lab A. You got a lab and it's worth 10%, and then participation is worth 10, and then there's a final. So you've got all the things that are in your syllabus, and then the weighting for them here. And so then what we're going to do is, once your grades come in, you can monitor it, and you can say, well, for the first midterm, I didn't do so good, I got a 58. The next midterm, I just got the grade back, and I improved a little bit, I got a 67. And it's slowly calculating your current score, and it's just getting your total here. And you'll see these numbers here are changing at the moment. The lab portion, you haven't finished the lab, but you might be able to look at your average and just say, oh yeah, I've done 7 of them so far. Each one's worth 1%. I've been getting 80s, so maybe you could just say that you're going to average around 80. It's a good estimate. You could be conservative if you wanted to, and say 70, and then that could just allow you to be prepared. Participation, you're participating really well, and you expect to get 100% on that. Now we can see that this here, we don't put the final in because we haven't set it yet. This is just to help with the calculation down below here. So we don't touch this. This here is all automatic, and it's just going to give us, if this just says this is what you've earned so far. So you have gotten 58 of 25, 67 of 25, 80% of 10, and 100% of 10. That all adds up to 49.25. out of the 70% that you've finished. Now you got your final, and it said if you finished your final and you got 100% on your final, that means you'd get all 30. So this number here, 80, is just the final plus your total. So it's just telling you then what that letter grade turns into and what that GPA would be. This is based on the grade scale of the registrar's office that they recommend, but it's better to look at the percentages in your professor's syllabus. If you've got an 80 here, maybe in one class that is a B, whereas in another class it might be a B+. So have a look in your course syllabus just for what these numbers might be. This is just a guide down here for what the registrar recommends professors use. If you get a 90, you end up with a 77, an 80 ends up with a 74, and a 70 ends up with a 71. And you're able just to see that. And you can do that for each of your things, and then you can just start monitoring your grades from there. So definitely give this a go. A lot of people, I've been doing this all week. students are very nervous when they see it, but once they've gotten through that fear of actually finding out where they actually are, there's a lot of relief that now they have an understanding of what they need on their final instead of it being ambiguous or abstract. So I highly recommend you do that. If you want to, you can just make an appointment with me and we can do it together. Email us or use our calendar. I want to talk about exam. I've got here exam deferrals, but I just want to talk about exams in general. Exams in general, the registrar's office has an examinations and scheduling webpage. So if you use that link, it's just going to take you right here. If you go to the office of the registrar, you'll see examinations are right here. The schedule will be confirmed soon, and then you'll have your dates locked in, so you can start planning. They've got other things that you might need to know. Here's some guidelines for students. Down here there's some really helpful information, some quick links just to if you're absent from an exam, what to do if you are sick, that kind of thing, what re-examinations look like, what do deferred exams look like. You'll find that all on this page here. If you're unsure, then email us or stop by the office. For example, if you happen to miss an exam, we can help you out as well. But we'll just be using this website. We just follow the instructions from there. The withdrawal process, the date's coming up for November 29th, and this is the last day to withdraw from any course. No refund at this point, but you would just get a W instead of setting the final for that one. Our process is to meet with us, book an appointment, say that you want to talk about withdrawing from a course or withdrawing fully from a program because things haven't been going so well. Withdrawing fully, it could be a great option for students that have had really poor results and you don't see yourself passing any of your courses. If you withdraw fully, then you would be able to, that would just be all W's, and the faculty would allow you to apply in the future as just having taken a year off. So you would be able to have automatic acceptance back to your faculty instead of taking that risk of maybe having a 1.0 GPA this semester or lower, and then for winter requiring a 3.0 or higher just to average back to a 2.0 overall, just to avoid the RTW, let alone being competitive for a faculty. So it's definitely, if that's the situation you're in, you've got really low grades, or you haven't been engaged as much as you realize you need to be, and you're not confident that you're going to do very, very well on all of your courses, then definitely we can talk about withdrawing from all of them, and we can see what that looks like. Make this appointment. If you're just looking to withdraw from one, then we just meet and we just discuss the implications. Typically that's the GPA change for first start program. If you're in 4, you drop down to 3, then you'd need that 2.7. So let's just come in, we'll have a talk about it, we'll sign some paperwork, and then you complete if you're going to drop it, then withdraw from it, then you just go into Bear Tracks and you drop it, and then we approve it once you've done our paperwork to you. If you're going to stay in it and it seems like it's going to be worthwhile, then we can come up with an action plan and to maintain a decent grade in there while not also impacting your other grades. So definitely make the appointment and we'll give you more information, and then you can make a better decision about dropping it or not. There's a lot of resources that are available, especially on the second floor of Sub. On the second floor of Sub, you'll find Ashley Luca's office. She is your Access consultant. You can email her and work with her. Again, she's around helping you access the resources on campus. This is if you're feeling overwhelmed or you're not even sure where to start. She is your point person on that. Just email her and see if you can make a time to meet and discuss an action plan around how you're going to access resources on campus. Where to start. There's the University Health Center and the pharmacy, general health concerns, getting your flu shot, getting that all sorted to make yourself super healthy and just get yourself nice and healthy, ready for finals over this next month. Counseling and clinical services have some great services that are available to you. You've got the initial appointments, you've got drop-in workshops, and you've got some resource handouts that they have there. If you go to their website, You could just do, which is just Alberta Current Students Counselling, or just do a search for counselling and clinical services in Google for Alberta. You'll come up with just a little information on what that initial consultation looks like, but you'll also get a few of their other parts that they have, and the drop-in workshops is really just, they're amazing. Here's their upcoming workshops, and they're just fantastic. Facing fears, gaining controls, I've done that one, it's really good. Managing stress is really good. Setting boundaries and communicating assertively, I haven't done that one, but I know that this is something that we're going to talk a little bit about today. This could be a little bit of self-sabotage, that we don't set boundaries and we say yes to everything, and we get into people pleasing, and we get into really using all of our time trying to solve other people's problems and not focusing on our own goals, to the detriment of our own goals. So there's a lot of great workshops in here. They're around an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's unfortunate they don't have as many to offer, but if you can get to them, I can't recommend them enough. Please give them a go. Peer support is another great option if you can't get the initial appointment, but you need someone to talk to. Peer support is a fantastic option. They're in on sub 2 on the second floor sub as well. One-on-one appointments, they have a lot of resources, and they can refer you as well to other ones, but on their website they also have their distress line too, which is Edmonton run, and it's 492-HELP, 780-492-4357, and this is fantastic for if you're unable to attend any or get to any of these resources. If it's 1 o'clock on Sunday morning, nothing's open, and your mind's going crazy, it's just racing, and you are in distress or in crisis, and you feel like you don't have anyone to talk to, you can use this helpline. This distress line is fantastic for that support. And finally, we got a couple of workshops that are coming up on the Academic Success Centre's plan. They've got final exam planning, which is a personalized way. You just go in, bring your syllabuses in. You've already got the content in the exam management module and the exam strategies module. This will be closely related to having that routine and that plan. So exam management, so you've gone through it and you've seen the content. Now you could show up and just go through it with an instructor in another group, and pull the resources and just come out with that 3-week plan as you come into finals. If you have in-class essays that you need to prepare for in an exam, can't recommend this workshop enough. I've done it. Stephen is a fantastic instructor. He's a great character, and he doesn't hold back. It's very clear, very practical, very actionable advice, how to prepare for them, how to do them. And I feel like you leave there with a lot of confidence that you have the strategies to do well if you follow his recommendations. Alright, let's get into a few things we can do around this time. We know that we're feeling a little bit more stress and pressure as time is going on, and I just wanted to give you a few strategies that you can use to help manage your state. If your emotional state is if you're too high or too low, or you're feeling a lot of distress, or you're feeling a lot of stress or crisis, or varying moods, you're depressed, you're anxious, you're worrying, we can do a lot of things around reading week to take that time to rejuvenate, take that time to have a break, get ourselves back on track, which is a little bit of today as well. But we just want to be able to manage that emotional state, and there's a lot of research around positive psychology about what are the things we can do to help ourselves thrive instead of worrying ourselves out of this. Out of our goals. So one thing that I'd love for you guys to do is to reconnect, get some connection going, building your community, having a reconnection with family and friends, which is a great time to do this, especially old friends that maybe you don't have on campus and that you're going to have reading week to reach out to. If you are going back home or you're going to have a little bit extra time, you could schedule some time to reconnect with a really good old friend. Gratitude, we're going to look at that, and we're going to look at some random acts of kindness. Reconnecting is just about being a good friend. You know these friends that you want to do this to is the one that is the best hugger, right? Maybe you're the best hugger in the group, but being able to reach out to a friend, open up, share your appreciation, share previous experiences, being sentimental, also being an active listener, giving them 100% of your attention, and just letting them know how much you appreciate them. This is a great way that we have that extra support, and we'll see shortly that you're still building this. Like, you're going on. If we go on any sort of journey, or we go on and try and develop any sort of project or achieve any sort of large goal, we need support as we go along. People that are directly helping us, like your instructors and teachers and advisors, but also we need people just to be there for us. And going through this, and you being that for somebody else, also pays dividends as also them being there for you. So these are mutually beneficial relationships, and we just want to take some time to nurture those. And there's a lot of benefits that can come from that for helping manage our well-being and our emotional state. Gratitude is one that probably you're starting to hear a lot of. Expressing it for the first time to someone that you've never expressed gratitude to can be a great place to start. Can have a really good impact on your emotional state at that time. Contributing and sharing with them about a specific shared experience that you want to be, that you're really grateful for, that you want to be thankful for, someone that helped you out. Writing a letter or email or just sending a text message. There's been a lot of experiments around this, especially for students doing it before exams. There's a couple that show that anxiety can be reduced and worrying can be reduced around sharing gratitude around this. We can do gratitude walks. We can start our day with 5 minutes of gratitude. We can end our day with 5 minutes of gratitude. In the middle of the day, if we're feeling really overwhelmed, we can go for a gratitude walk and just look around and think of all the things we're grateful for. A great place to start, and once we get the momentum of starting, just saying, I'm actually grateful for being alive. I really am just happy to have this opportunity to be a human. That kind of idea. This is a great time to be alive. Sometimes we can lose sight of that and that perspective in our day-to-day worry and stress of things to do. A really good way to do this is first thing in the morning. If you say that and then you're about to have your shower, I know that I say, oh, I'm so thankful for this warm water that's coming out of here. I've got a hot shower that I'm about to get into. That always makes me smile a little bit. I'm so thankful to have a house or a roof over my head. I'm so thankful for my family and my wife that are there in the other room. I'm super excited for those basic things, and that just flows from there, and I can start thinking of 10, 20, 30 things that I'm actually grateful for, and just getting that going and first thing in the morning is a great way to start the day and to end the day too. You've probably heard of gratitude journals. You may have tried these things before. Bring it back. Don't give up on those. Go for gratitude walks. Just remind, this is a strategy you can actively use to help manage your health and well-being. Random acts of kindness. You've done these all before, but we just want to be a little bit more self-aware of you doing this and sending this ripple effect out into the world. And it's very simple. It's just noticing the needs of others, reaching out to help, and just offering your skill and time. Just your abilities and time to help someone fulfill their needs, whatever that may be. So I want you to pause this, and I really want you to do this gratitude text message. Just take out your phone, pause the video, take out your phone, and just send a text message. You can probably think of 5 people that you can say thank you to for some specific reason. Just pick one and send that off, and then come back and give this a go. And then we'll move on. Okay, I hope you guys gave that a go. Let's keep going here and just see how far we've come. One thing that we can do to also help with managing our state is, in the email that I sent out, the weekly newsletter last Friday, was 2 videos, one called The Choice Point and one called Minding the Gap. And a lot of the time when we're in the midst of trying to focus on finals, we can lose sight of actually how far we've come, what you've already accomplished. And this can be a great way to give us momentum to get through and help us drive to get and do the work as the pressure mounts. It makes it just a little bit easier to do the work and to stick with our tasks as we try to achieve our goal. So I wanted just to remind you of what you've done the last 65 days. You guys have learned to take a lot more personal responsibility for your academics and for your life. We've asked you to build your own house. We've said to avoid the regret that you are in charge of all of your choices. And I think most of you believe this, and you're starting to realize that you're creating your future instead of being a victim of your circumstances. Yes, things happen that are out of our control, absolutely. But your ability to respond to those in a manner that is aligned with your goals is in your control. You have these beliefs about how the world can work, and you can choose those beliefs. We're going to see that today. Once you took responsibility and you said, you know what, I'm going to create my experience here, and this is how I want my life to be, you started setting some goals. You said, I'm going to be in charge of this. Okay, what do I want? I want this. I want these kinds of grades. I want to learn this kind of information. I want to save this much money for this particular thing over here. I want to get a job. I want to be doing this. I want to be doing that. I want to be doing meal prep over here. I want to get a little bit more exercise in my life. I want to be joining this group. Or you're designing your life very personalized, and you've set some goals about what you want to achieve. Maybe even further, not just short term, not just this term. You're thinking the whole year. You're thinking degree. You may even be thinking career. You see that this is kind of the area that I want to go into, and been thinking maybe even 10 years in advance, right? Talking to Tyree could be a great way to refresh and remind yourself of these. We can often lose sight of those goals because they are far away, and we're in the dungeons, and we're just kind of going through the motions. We forget why we're doing it, and these goals really are. If you're feeling that you don't have any motivation and you're not able to do the work, you may have lost sight of these goals. So remind yourself, refresh yourself, put those goals somewhere where you can see them and read them every day. You need to make it compelling. You're doing this for a reason. Why am I going through all these classes? Why am I getting up? It's minus 14 outside, and I'm trying to I got to take 2 buses to get to campus, and I got an 8 a.m. lab. Right? Remind yourself of why you're doing that. It can be hard to make that choice, right? To stay cozy, stay in bed when that alarm goes off, and just hit snooze. That's really easy to do. But if you've got a compelling future, you jump right out and you get right into your gratitude and being so thankful for this opportunity. You're excited to have a chance to attack your goals. It makes it a little bit easier. Right, so remind yourself of those, and you have been doing this. You've also, once you started doing that, you said, okay, I need a plan. If I want to achieve these things, those are big things that I want to achieve. The very next question is how? How am I going to do that? So you came up with a monthly calendar. You know your deadlines. You know what you've got to achieve and the targets you need to hit. Then you've said, okay, on a week-to-week basis, I need to be doing this. And every week, if you've been following along with the reflections, you've been able to say, okay, this works for me really well. This doesn't work for me really well. Okay, I got to be strategic around prioritizing this assignment over this one. I'm going to put in this much time, and this is where I can do it, and this is how I can live my life and achieve all of these goals that I'm working towards in the short and medium term. You've been able to do that, and you're still doing it. You've also, for your academics and trying to improve on these grades, is that one of your key goals has been looking at the cognitive strategies involved in how learning works, and you've started to adopt some of these strategies into performing better to learn the material so that you can pass an exam, so that you can write good papers, to think critically, to learn complicated information quickly. You've been trying to incorporate these strategies throughout this time. And to the point of connection, you've started to build your community. You are independent. You are an independent learner, and you are doing this on your own, but you're also starting to realize that on these major tasks, on these big goals like a degree, you need support. You need friends and family that can be there to listen to you and you can vent to and to support you as you go along. But then you also need your instructors to teach you the information. You need advisors to help you navigate the bureaucracy of how the university works. You're starting to build this community so that you have interdependence as well. That's what you've been doing over the last 65 days. You probably didn't know this. You probably weren't fully aware that this is what you have been doing this whole time. And this is what we've been encouraging you to do. We've tried to engage you with the online course, with the seminars, and giving you these skills to empower you to make these choices wisely, consistently over time. And you have been doing this. And we've got 31 days left. 31 days, finishing strong. You know that I gave you that curve of that first year experience. But we're not first year anymore, so that there is a little misleading. Those are the students that haven't done this. So they have that big dip in motivations, that trend down. And that doesn't have to be for us. We can make these 31 days more motivating, more exciting than we've ever had before by doing these things. reminding myself I'm taking personal responsibility for this. I am the creator of my existence. I'm going to set some new goals. I'm going to remind myself of my old goals. I'm going to create a self-management plan to achieve those goals. And I'm going to start applying these strategies again. I'm going to double down. This here will give us the energy to keep going. And I'm going to ask for help. And that curve can start going back up. These last 31 days could put you in a position to be so fired up for finals, more energy than you've ever had before. And you can do that. You can do that if you apply these strategies. But sometimes we fall off track, off course. We get off track. And that's what today is about. How do we get back on track? You want to be doing all those things, but we just notice sometimes that we're off track. We're off course, and it's with these strange behaviors. You've set goals, but you're doing something like procrastination. You've got an assignment that you have to hand in, or a midterm that you've got to study for, and you don't study for it. What's that about? That's a strange behavior. You've said, I want to get a B in this class, but I just put 3 hours the night before of cramming into that midterm. Why did I do that? Or another student, a professor offers to do 5 assignments, each with 10%, and you've done the first 3, and then you forget that you don't do that, hand in the last 2. Or you do all of those assignments, but you don't sit the final. These are strange behaviors, and they're not aligned with your goals. We want to talk about these strange behaviors today. We have to remember first, they're unconscious. They're unconscious behaviors. We're doing them based on some sort of rule that we're operating on. There's a belief. These serve a purpose. These behaviors, these strange behaviors, serve a purpose. They're typically known as self-sabotage, self-handicapping. You may have heard of this before. We know that they're unconscious. That comes from brain surgery. When operating on a human brain, and they've been doing surgery, they've been noticing that when they touch certain areas of the brain, the patient would share remarkably vivid stories and experiences of their lives that they had no idea, they forgot it had even happened, and they did not have access to that. There's no prompt, it's just touch and out it comes. We know that there is something happening in the unconscious. There's a lot of things that have been stored. There's a theory that says that it is every experience that we've had is stored. And some of them, they've even localized this to saying in the amygdala, which is right in the middle of the brain, and it's maybe even the second part. So when we take in information from our senses, maybe our eyes will go to the occipital lobe, and then it'll go to the thalamus, which will hit all of our memories and getting all of the information and experiencing that, but then it will run through the amygdala. And the amygdala is really our night watchman, it's described, or like a security guard. He's on the lookout for threat. It's going to decide if I need to kick in that stress response. Then it goes to prefrontal cortex, and we're able to use our working memory and start thinking and calculating and being critical of what's going on, and we can make good decisions. This is where we want to have our rational decisions, things that are aligned with our goals, our future goals. But our amygdala comes first, and it gets to have its say first. And what they're finding is that we have our stored lessons, stored memories in here that are on some certain rules. They're operating on certain rules around threat, around anything that produces anxiety or the stress response. Boop, I'm out of here. It's like, hey, that's threatening, that is causing me anxiety, fight or flight or freeze, right? This is what's happening. So this is happening unconsciously. We don't get to catch that. Automatically, we're over here. This is the rule. If I experience anxiety or stress or a rise in these concerns, I start doing this particular thing. And those are learned behaviors. Procrastination is a very good example. We all do this because this is the number one. This is how the mind is operating. I've just described the biology of procrastination. That's what's going on. So the answer to these strange behaviors that aren't aligned with our goals, the answer to the self-sabotage is self-awareness. We have to be able to notice what is going on and see at a deeper level, asking our unconscious what is going on. Maybe we can find these rules. And we're going to be looking at the cognitive part, the behavioral part, and the emotional part. What is the story we're telling ourselves? What is the emotions or the feelings that I'm experiencing? And what is the behavior that I'm actually engaging in that is hurting my chances of succeeding? We want to succeed, but we still find ourselves doing these bloody behaviors that just don't help. They don't work anymore. So today we're going to try and dig a little bit deeper into these by just looking at each of those levels. I have a picture here of the solar system as when Uranus was first found. There was a mathematical model that came up for how planets orbited around the Sun. And every single one of this model fit everything except for Uranus. And at the time, these two were not discovered. And at the time, it took a while, but one astronomer said, you know what, maybe there is a gravitational pull on Uranus which is taking it outside, and that's why it's not fitting our model of everything else. And sure enough, when technology improved and advanced, they found Neptune. And Neptune was pulling on that planet and taking it off course. And we all have a Neptune. We're going to try and find a strategy to see what is pulling us off course. If we can rewrite that rule down to we can find that core belief that is running that behavior, maybe we can rewrite it and be more self-aware so that we can override it in the moment with the strategy today. So let's give it a go. Here is a list of the types of things we do. I'm just going to put, it's not very good, it's just straight from the book On Course, written by Skip Downing. It's one of the most successful college success courses available. And he has a whole section on self-awareness. And this is his part of his list that he has. So if I point, I wonder if I'm college material. Have you ever done that? That's not helpful, right? But we've all doubted our abilities. I don't like to post any of my thoughts in the online class forum because I don't want people to know what I really think. Have we ever done that? I'm very critical of myself. I bet you everyone's raising their hand on that one. I don't ask questions in class or participate in class discussions. Is that self-defeating behavior? Is that self-sabotage? It's not helping us learn. I experience severe test anxiety. A lot of people will say that it's just a part of me, but maybe there is some self-sabotage in here that the anxiety gets too high. Why do we always get test anxiety around tests? You know the material. Maybe there is something deeper that we're operating on. And so we're going to try and go into ask the unconscious a few questions to see about some of these behaviors that are unhelpful. I'm going to guide you through the questions, give you some examples, and then I'm going to give you the questions you can ask yourself, and also a dialogue of 10 questions that you can do to see if you can override these and rewrite your rules. Let's have a look. As a reminder, every one of those behaviors on that list serves a purpose. Every single one of these. They all serve a purpose. They are unconscious. They are unhelpful. They don't help us achieve our goals, but they are serving a purpose. So whatever name we call these, whether it is self-handicapping, self-sabotage, shooting yourself in the foot, whatever you want to call it, they can say, all psychologists agree that they serve a purpose. There is a function to them. And that function is to manage that stress response. There is something that is running that. It is typically going to be anxiety or fear that is ruling us at some level, and we've got to go deep to find out what lessons we've learned. What is that core belief I have? What is the fear I have around this that's triggering that amygdala response? So I'm going into fight or flight or freeze and not able to think critically about, no, I don't want to do that, I want to do this. They're allowing us to avoid pain. That's what they're all doing. They're allowing us, even though they cause us pain in the future, in the moment, it's allowing us to avoid discomfort and pain and struggle in the moment, and it's not aligned with our future goals. So let's have a look at what this pyramid looks like. I want you to think of this as an iceberg. I got the image here for you. You're probably aware of Freud's iceberg of the conscious unconscious. So I just want us to start with just using a pyramid. I want you to think of that, and first we have the behavior. We can notice that behavior because we're doing it, and that's excuse me, that's in that list of all those different behaviors. But you can think of this around, I'm going to give some other examples around social norms, around health and nutrition. What are the behaviors that are defeating your goals in other areas? Saving money, right? Finding part-time work. What are the behaviors that are stopping you from achieving your goals in that area? And seeing if we can exert take some responsibility by having a look and going a little bit deeper on why we're doing this. If we're going to take full responsibility for all of these outcomes, we could easily say, I got test anxiety because there's too much pressure, or I don't know the professor's is not teaching it well. We can come up with all these external rules and reasons and excuses for how this is happening, because it's strange behavior. We don't know why it's happening. Let's go and dig deep and go inside and say, well, maybe it's self-sabotage. Let's see if we can find something by asking these questions. Now, you're not going to know the answer to these questions until you ask it, because it's unconscious. You don't know the reasons, right? You may have an idea, but give this a chance, and give yourself time to go through these questions and answer these questions as you go, nice and slowly, and just see what comes up for you. Just wait. It's not an academic task, this one. This one is an unconscious asking and waiting to see what spills up and comes into your consciousness. And then we can go from there. We're going to ask ourselves, what is the narrative? When I'm doing this behavior, when I'm procrastinating, when I'm binging on food or binging on alcohol, or I'm watching 4 hours of Netflix every single night, or I'm staying up till 4 a.m. on the night before a midterm, or I'm just not handing in any of my assignments, what is the story I tell myself about why I'm doing this? I'm hearing this story in here, and what is the thought that's most either during or helps me to justify what this behavior is about? What's the story I'm telling myself? Next is noticing the feeling or the emotion. Use a feeling word to notice what you are feeling in that moment. When this behavior takes place, what are you feeling? Finally, we're going to go even deeper and look at the actual physical sensation. How does that feeling manifest itself? Because the physical sensation comes first. We're going to have this physical sensation, and then the brain interprets those physical sensations into an emotion. And then that emotion, once it becomes conscious, we label it and say, well, I'm angry. Now it's a feeling, and now I'm telling myself a story, and then that's leading to the behavior. We're digging deep as we're trying to find the initial part. So after physical sensation, we're going to look at the core belief or rule that needs to be operating for me to be doing this. What do I believe about my world that leads to this behavior, that leads to all of this? And finally, if we're lucky, this may not come up, but if we're lucky, we will have learnt this rule somewhere. There's a belief. We're only born with a few automatic reflexes. You would have learned these behaviors at some point, probably around 5 through 15, that you've learned these behaviors, because back then they worked. The amygdala locked in, and they help protect you, they help keep you safe, they help to manage stress and fear and anxiety, and they kept you safe. We may be able to find the original incident. You may have a memory of a time where you actually think that this happened. So let's look at some examples. This isn't easy. I know this is a bit strange, but it is very powerful and very helpful. If we're going to stay on track and achieve our goals, we've got to be able to deal with these limiting beliefs, these self-defeating behaviors. And the way we can do that is by going through and being much more self-aware about every single one of these levels. Because once we start becoming self-aware, we can nip them in the butt. We can catch them and say, oh shoot, I'm operating on this rule. No, I got a new rule. My new rule is this. We're going to try and rewrite this rule down here. Let's have a look at a couple of examples. The first one is a little bit of a sad story. The student comes in just before finals of the winter semester. I'd been trying to get a hold of him because he was below 2.0 for the fall. He was around 1.8, 1.9. He only had to pick it up a little bit to maintain the 2.0, but he needed to be 2.4, I think, for the faculty he was applying to. So I'd been reaching out. He wasn't engaging with us, and he finally made an appointment and came in March, getting ready for his finals. And his behavior was, I just don't prepare for my exams. I was like, well, can you be more specific? What do you mean you don't prepare for them? And he said, I don't do anything. I was like, okay, well, that doesn't help, right? It's like, yeah, I want to get good grades. I see I'm not getting good grades, but every time I sit down to do the work, I don't do it. And so we both agreed that doesn't help. So we wanted to go a little bit deeper to say, okay, that's really strange behavior for someone that wants to achieve a certain goal and believes in their confidence about being able to do the work, but just doesn't do it. That's strange. So we asked him, what's the story you tell yourself once you're sitting down there and you try to start? And he says, every time I try to start, I talk myself out of it. I'm able to have the conversation in my head, and the story goes, don't worry about it. You only need a few days to prepare. You only need a small amount of time. You don't have to start this early. You can do it later. Don't worry about it. Or, I already know this. That came to mind. That just popped into my head as well. I say, okay, all right. There's you're describing procrastination, right? And that's what I do. I put things off, and I'm able to tell myself that story that I only need a few days. How do you feel when that happens? He says he feels a sense of relief. As soon as he says that, he's like, yep, I agree. I'll go do something else. So he does have a feeling of relief that comes with that. In his body, he said that there's like a big tension around the shoulders and the necks, and there's a big sigh that sort of comes with it. Is how he described it. Then we said, what rule are you operating on? And he already knew. I think that he'd been thinking about this for a while, and he kind of knew where this was coming from. And he actually said the original incident first. He said, I know what is going on. I was labeled gifted in kindergarten, he said. In kindergarten, I was labeled gifted, that I was brilliant. And every time I did things, it was just reinforced over and over again that I do things quickly. I am smart. I'm able to solve problems without any work, and I do things fast. So all through high school, he said he was getting 90s, even if he's exaggerating a little bit. He's explaining that I'm getting 90s and doing very well with no preparation. None. And he just defined this and said, my rule is, smart people do well with no preparation. If you're smart, you do things quickly. If you're smart, you don't need to work. You don't need to apply effort. That was the rule he was applying. And again, he labeled that as being gifted in, I wrote elementary, he said kindergarten. This was very helpful for him. He's then able to start saying, you know what, I asked him, please change this rule. What's a better rule for you? And he says, if I want to get the grades, like I'm so far behind right now, I have to work harder than I've ever worked before. It's not with no effort that I learn things. It's going to be with full effort I learn things, no matter what. I did say this as a sad story. He was a little bit too late. He was too far gone in the winter. He thinks that he must have gotten around 80s and 90s for his finals, but it wasn't enough, and he ended up with a 1.94. So it didn't even round up, and he did receive the RTW. He's able to accept the role that he's taking full responsibility. He knows that it was too little too late. He's still trusting his capabilities. He's got a job. He's saving money. He's able to, he just bought a new car. He's happy with his healthy relationship. He's still got a life that is going on, and he's saving up, and he's got a plan for his education, that he's going to try a different route now. Since this path has ended for him for now. He's still got that waiting period, but he's going to be able to take this, and he's able to learn from this, knowing that he knows that I can do anything when I actually put in the effort. And so he knows now I'm going to be applying the effort, and he's rewritten this rule. This rule made sense during high school for him. It made sense during elementary, but it doesn't make sense anymore. So now he doesn't need to operate on this rule. So he's got to give it opportunities to rewrite this rule through practicing. Okay, every time you apply it, that's a new vote. The thalamus will take that into account. The amygdala will take that into account. You're rewriting this rule, saying that rule doesn't work for me anymore. Now he's got the self-awareness to know, hey, look, I'm breaking that rule. I've got a new rule. I'm going to operate on it. The brain's you're going to fire up all of those neurons, and that's going to be reinforced, and you're going to slowly rewrite that rule. Let's look at another example. I'm going to take one from a little bit more personal, in that this one isn't an academic one, but it was impacting the student's academics. He says that he's always pleasing everybody, especially around living in a dorm. There's so many people around, and he's very socially active, lots of friends, family, siblings, everyone's involved. But he finds himself trying to please everyone, and he's always the person that's jumping up to help. And this impacts him because it takes away time for him to do his things. He knows he's got a plan, and then he ends up trying to solve everyone's problems and keep them happy, and he's suffering for it because he's not keeping himself happy, and he's not congruent with what he wants, which leads to a whole host of low confidence, not believing in his own abilities, doubting himself, and that just reinforces, well, I want to contribute somehow, so I'm going to keep helping other people. So we say, what's the story you're telling yourself as you're trying to please people? And he says, good people. I'm just being a good person. This is what good people do. So he said, I'm helping. I'm a helper. He identifies with helping. That's just what I do. Right? And that there sounds like a rule already, right? How do you feel when you're actually doing this? And he says, I feel guilty because I know that I've got my things to do, so I feel a lot of anxiety. I'm doing it because I still don't know if they're appreciating it, or if they're thanking me for it, or I'm mad at myself because I know that I'm pleasing people all the time, and I should be doing my other things. So there's a lot of anxiety and worrying and ruminating that goes on. How do you feel this? He described it as fidgety and shaky. The rule that I flicked on that a little too fast. This took a long time, but he sat there and he must have thought in silence. We just didn't say anything for maybe 5 minutes. And he has just said, it just popped into his head, just said, keeping people happy avoids conflict. And immediately we just think of family and siblings. Like, this is young. I was like, okay, what's the original incident for you? And he's like, no, in school, I had to deal with bullies, and if I was being bullied, if I was helping people, if I was helping teachers, if I was helping the bullies, if I was helping my friends, then nobody bullied me. No one picked on me. Nobody shamed me. I didn't get embarrassed. Nobody even called on me. I was just a nice person that could be left alone, and I could be invisible to you. So this one here is really powerful. You can see this here was keeping him safe. And if you're being bullied and you're trying to avoid that kind of pain or discomfort, this makes sense. This is the behavior he learned, and it worked. He probably tried a few behaviors, but this is the one that stuck. If I keep helping everybody, they won't bully me. Does he need this rule now? No, he can rewrite this rule, and we can rewrite it at every single one of these levels. So there are a couple of examples. Some of you may have identified. A lot of people over the last 2 seminars have told me that they're really identifying with these two. So I'm glad that they're in there, especially this one over here. How do you find your rules? Follow these 6 steps. Put these down on paper. Just follow along. You have the slides in the module. What is your self-defeating behavior? What are some examples of when you did this behavior? What's the story you tell yourself? Just like the last examples. What's the story you tell yourself? What's the emotional feeling? What's the physical experience? What rule? And just wait for the answer. Don't try to answer it right away. Don't try to rationalize it or think about it. Just let it pop into your mind from the unconscious. Let it come to the conscious, to your consciousness, and allow you just to think, okay, maybe this is the rule that is I'm following. And then from there, ask your consciousness again, can I think of a memory of when I might have learned this? That's how we find the rules. How do we rewrite the rules? You can start with that rule. Once you've got that rule, you can think of a new one and just, first of all, look at that memory and say, you know what, that makes sense to use that rule, just like the other two. In elementary school, it makes sense. Yeah, you don't have to do the work to, if you're getting good grades without doing the work, great. That rule works. If you're getting bullied and helping people out, that works. So that's a great lesson to learn as my 10-year-old self, as my 5-year-old self. But me, as an emerging adult in university, this doesn't work anymore. I don't need this rule anymore. Thank you. That act might be enough to give you the behaviors that you need that to cut this behavior out. But you're going to need self-awareness, and you're probably going to have to reinforce this by picking a new rule. Give yourself a new rule so you can say, if I am having this story, or I'm procrastinating, or I'm telling myself it's okay, you can put it off, or I'm feeling anxious, or I'm feeling the physical sensations, and you're noticing this rule is happening, you can say, oh, my self-awareness is kicking in. Now my spidey senses can tell this isn't unconscious behavior for me anymore. You're now using self-awareness to say, this behavior doesn't work. I'm going to do this. And you apply your new rule. If you're going to have the conversation, you can use these 10 questions. I'm just going to pop them all up. We won't talk about each of them individually. You can go through them and use these 10 questions to help you rewrite your rules. You're going to go through each of those layers and offer up a new rule at each of those points to come up with a core belief at the bottom, and then finally, what have you learned? And this is going to be really powerful for any of the self-sabotaging behaviors you have. Alright, I look forward to hearing how this goes for you. I'm going to be following up. This is how you're going to rewrite your rules. Thanks very much. See you next time.